Oh, they're outgoing, they're shy, they're analytical, they're friendly, whatever. These are not behaviors. Of course, these are personality words. Here's actually why that's so, folks. When you were 2 or 3 or 4, human beings were interacting with you, and your brain is really good at counting behaviors, really good. We teach this at our effective communications training in detail, how to do it effectively. And it works every time. Your brain is very good at counting things and at seeing behaviors, seeing and hearing behaviors. And the reason for that is behaviors of people who are close to you can be beneficial to you or can hurt you. So your brain made a deal with you when you were a baby and said, you are going to be besieged with behaviors. They're going to be too many. You can't even count. You don't know how to count. Well, your brain knew how to count when you were 2. I'm going to count them for you. I'm going to see the hand gestures and the eye movements and the tone and the quality and so on. And I'm going to count them all up, and I'm going to make a determination about the person. And because you can't deal with the analytics, because you're a baby, I'm going to feed you words when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, and you'll gradually learn more words, and you'll gradually get better and better at this. But the words I'm going to feed you are going to be personality words. Oh, this person is friendly, this person is loving, this person is kind, this person is loud, this person is rough, this person is mean, whatever the case. All of those words I just used, outgoing, rough, mean, kind, friendly, whatever, are essentially non-measurable unless we agree on the underlying behaviors that mean somebody's friendly or mean for that reason. So your brain knows this person is slightly this or slightly that or more this or more that, but you couldn't deal with the complexity of the math that your brain was doing, the subtlety of your brain being able to see all these behaviors, and so it fed you these personality words. The end result is those personality words aren't measurements, and they're judgmental words. Specifically, if I, when I'm 10, tend to be fairly outgoing, and I meet someone who's not, because they're not like me, the personality words my brain uses to describe people who are different than me are personality words that include judgment, which is negative. For instance, if I'm outgoing and I meet a person who's not outgoing, my brain feeds me the personality word when I'm 8, 10, 12, 15 of weak. If I talk loud and somebody else talks soft, then my brain feeds me the personality word of unconfident. If I'm a quiet person and I meet a person who speaks forcefully, they're not confident, they're rude. And this is our brain teaching us personality relative to our own personality and putting it on top of whether they're like us or not. And what we teach at the Effective Communications Conference is to say, don't judge, don't draw emotional personality word conclusions. Don't use words like friendly or outgoing. Say to yourself, okay, what behavior am I seeing? And the reason this is so important is what we learn to do when we're young is we see the behaviors, we infer personality words, some positive, some negative, depending upon whether this person is like us or not. In some cases, many people even get arrogant and say, oh, and I kind of know how they were raised, and I know, what their background is, and so on. And then, in order to work with that person, we project forward 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We use this mix of personality and background and nurturing stuff. And by the way, hopefully I've already proved we're not any good at inferring personality or background from behavior. We're terrible at it. Then we project forward those personality traits and so on, and then based on that, we try to extrapolate from that personality the behavior that's going to exist in 2 weeks. This is dumb because we're bad at interpreting what the personality is, and we're also bad at extrapolating what the behaviors that's going to come from that personality in a couple of weeks. However, the thing you can count on with people that is true in far more often than people realize when you start focusing on behavior is you don't need to guess at personality. You don't need to guess at extrapolating what personality means in terms of behavior. The behavior you're seeing this week is very likely to be the behavior you're going to see in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if somebody's late with something, a project or a report or something, you can almost guarantee that 90% of the time they will be late with it. What you can't tell is whether it's because they don't understand the work, because they find it difficult, because they just don't care, just because they have a different concept of time than you do. There's a whole range of reasons why they might be consistently late, but the only thing you can tell is that they'll be consistently late.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't want to say somebody's consistently late because they're late one time, but if there's a pattern, you don't need to guess why. And folks, your brain is really good at jumping to conclusions about why, but intention and motivation are hard to be accurate about for ourselves, believe it or not, let alone for other people. If it were easy for us to know about ourselves, then all those therapist moments where people say, why do you think you're doing that? And the person suddenly has an aha moment wouldn't exist.
The one I like about this is all the people who say, I died to be thin. Well, you clearly wouldn't because you're not.
There's no behavior in your mind.
So there is some kind of reward in continuing the behavior that you say you don't want to have.
Exactly.
And so if you don't understand yourself, why do you think that you can understand other people?
Yeah, and you know what? There's an entire industry out there in the world today that is making this problem of guessing at intent and motivation worse. And they're saying we need to coach people, and every time somebody makes a mistake, we should coach them, and we should sit down, and we should understand why they did it. Folks, we have a podcast for that. It's called There Is No Why in Feedback, okay? If I make a mistake and Wendy's my boss, if Wendy's smart, she won't get into the why. She'll get into changing my behavior next time because the why and my mistake are both in the past. And it's not your job to change people's thinking. And you're unlikely to be any darn good at it. What you get paid for at work is outcomes. If I did an outcome that isn't helpful to Wendy, she should point out that my outcome isn't good and ask me to change the outcome and allow me. This is absolutely the opposite of micromanagement. It's funny. People say to me, oh, Mark, some of the things you say are micromanagement. And then they suggest that every time their directs make a mistake, they should sit down with the direct and go over their motivation and intent. If that's not micromanaging, getting inside the head of your direct, I don't know what is. Okay. So when you asked a direct, what were you thinking? It's dumb. Okay. Nobody goes into a task or a mistake, a situation, and intends to mess it up. And you're unlikely to get a straight answer to what you were thinking. In fact, what somebody was thinking. In fact, they're going to tell you all the reasons why they did it, and they're all good. Okay? It made sense to them. Yeah. So it's stupid. You're not going to, it's not going to help. And by the way, you're not any good at it.
I guessed all those reasons that you might be late with reports.
Yeah.
And I might say to you, hey, Mark, can I give you some feedback? When you're late with your reports, it puts everybody else's work, makes everyone else's work late. Can you change that? And your answer might be, oh my gosh, I never realized there was work downstream of me. Of course I'll be on time. And that wasn't on any of the things that I could imagine as reasons as to why you were late, because you're not like me.
Yeah. And look, people are different enough. If you're not paying attention to them, that you're going to do the mistake that I made many, many times in my life before I learned better, which is, oh, they did that because they're like me, or they did that for the same reasons that I would do it. And that's just dumb. Just because someone has done something that's irritating doesn't mean they did it in order to irritate you. They don't think it would irritate you. I mean, it's rare. There are people who do that, but those people, we have casts on how to get rid of them. They probably didn't even think, if they did it and they discovered later that it might irritate you, they might say, well, okay, but it makes sense. And your irritation, unless you're their boss or their boss's boss, is not a reason not to do it if they believe they have a reason to do it. And maybe they thought the benefit that came out of it would outweigh that cost. If you blow up at them, if you want them to change it just because it irritated you, you're creating a situation where you're telling them what they do is wrong simply because of one outcome, which, by the way, generally, getting irritated is not terribly helpful. Take it from somebody who got irritated a lot and still does probably too much.
Take it from two people.
Yeah. If you blow up at people because the only way you can see them doing it would have been based on you wanting to annoy someone, There are plenty of other things that damage relationships. We don't need to do it to ourselves. Don't assume the intent that someone else has because it makes sense to you that the only reason to have done that thing, or one of the reasons to have done that thing, was to irritate you or to have an outcome that you don't like, because you're wrong. And even if you get into a conversation with somebody about what they did and why they did it, if you're thinking, okay, that, oh, it was this or that, not only is it wrong, they don't like it. Okay, people just don't like it. They want to stay inside their own heads, and they'll lie about it. Well, I didn't think it would irritate you, or I didn't realize. And you can't win that argument because you don't know what's in their head. They do. And they know you don't know what's in their head, as opposed to talking about behavior, which everyone can see and hear. Okay, last point. Upgrade from the golden rule.
Right. So if anybody hasn't heard the golden rule, it is do unto others as you would that they should do unto you. So in other words, do the things to other people, or do the things for other people that you would like them to do for you. So if I go into Starbucks, I would like them to not talk to me, be really fast, and produce my coffee quickly. And if I worked there, that's how I would work, because I would assume that everybody in the line wanted what I would want.
Yeah, that wouldn't go very well, would it?
It wouldn't go very well, because there's some people who go into Starbucks for the conversation, to see the same person, to have a chat.
That reminds me, you mentioned a retail situation, Starbucks. I've told people before, the greatest retail experience I ever had in my life was a number of years ago. I walked into the Apple store. I wanted a new iPhone. This was during the time when the launch had already come out and there was a line, and that had already gone. But 3 or 4 weeks later, the Apple website said it was green, meaning that there was available stock in the store in San Antonio. And so I walked into the store and said, I'd like an iPhone, the biggest one you have. And he said, okay. He walked behind the counter, handed me a box about as big as 2 fists, said, here you go. He asked me, is this your email address? Because I'd shopped there before. I said, yes. And I was out of the store in less than a minute. To you, that's a great experience, right? That's a great retail experience, right?
Every time I go into the Apple store and I need something, I always know what I need. And I walk up to the first person, I said, I need to shop, I've got 5 minutes. And then the person comes over and I say, I've got 5 minutes, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And they do it in 5 minutes because I've told them that.
Yeah, if I'm in a persnickety mood when a person comes up to me and says something like, hey, how are we doing today, folks? My mental thought is, how is that relevant? It's absolutely not relevant.
Get my stuff.
Yeah, it's just not relevant. I mean, and even if it was relevant, you're asking me to share with you as if we're going to have a chat. And I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in getting the thing I want to get. Maybe that's why I do so much at Amazon. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. So the golden rule, the one that you and I would most like, as you know, everyone would do for us what we would like to have done, has been around for ages. It's one of those things. It's in every religion. There's people who study such things say it's been around since it's been called the Golden Rule since the 1600s. And there is also a silver rule, which I didn't know, which is don't do unto others what you wouldn't do unto yourself.
Sure.
In other words, don't go around stealing things and so on.
The whole point of you bringing up Golden Rule, I assume, is that the Golden Rule is Mark should do unto Wendy as Mark wants done unto himself, when in fact Wendy is different than me, and that won't work. Wendy definitely doesn't think or feel the same way I do about a lot of things, right? I mean,
exactly. And that's why someone, I don't know when, created the Platinum Rule, which is you should do unto others as they would do unto themselves. In other words, you do for them what they would do for themselves. Yeah. Not what you would do for yourself.
Don't do for them what you want. Do for them what they want. And this means, and this means, and this means you have to pay attention to what they want. And the single biggest signaling effect that people have in what they want is what they do, how they treat other people. Not assuming what's in their head when they're doing X or Y or Z, but watching what they do. So if I'm talking to, I'm trying to think of somebody off the top of my